Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
Two major cases out of the Supreme Court today, both 5-4 decisions. So just, again, 5-4, same justices in each that made up the majority and the dissenters. In the case, again, we were involved in both of these cases. On the pro-life case, these were the pro-life pregnancy centers. Some call them crisis pregnancy centers. This was a case out of California. We also have one out of Hawaii that will be affected by this, and we'll talk about this later in the show with our team of experts and attorneys who have been working on this. In that case, we filed suit against the state of California on behalf of 3 licensed pro-life pregnancy centers before the law went into effect. Eventually, the Ninth Circuit did affirm this law, and let me tell you exactly what it did, because it was pretty unique. It required a notice to be put on the pro-life pregnancy centers that say, quote, California has public programs that provide immediate, free, or low-cost access to comprehensive family planning services, including FDA-approved methods of contraceptive, prenatal care, and abortion for eligible women. To determine whether you qualify, contact the county social services office at, and then put the phone number. So if you're a pro-life pregnancy center, you had to advertise for abortion, and then it went so far as to say how large the advertisement had to be. So the public notice posted had to be in a conspicuous place where individuals that are waiting may be easily able to read it. Notice shall be at least 8 by 11 and written in no less than 22-point type. And so again, in a printed notice must be distributed to all clients in no less than 14-point type. So not just on the wall, but you also have to hand that out to people. A huge win for life and for freedom of speech in the First Amendment. And you know these pro-abortion groups are very upset and very angry about this. They always want to shut these pro-life pregnancy centers down. We have a matching challenge right now. You know, all of these cases that we've talked about today, and some that we'll talk about later in the show as well, we're involved in at the ACLJ, and we have cases like them around the country that'll be impacted because of the Supreme Court decisions today. In just the pro-life case, we have 3 pro-life pregnancy centers that are impacted directly, and another in a different state with a similar law that is also impacted. So that's just one of these cases that came out today. So the matching challenge where your donation is doubled really is important. It affects us so that we can do the work that we do around the country and around the world. You can be a part of our matching challenge by calling right now, toll-free number 877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255, or going to ACLJ.org. That's ACLJ.org, where you can click on that button, Matching Challenge, and donate that way. Your donation is doubled. Or call now, 877-989-2255.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
Welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. Two major victories at the U.S. Supreme Court. We want to focus first on the pro-life victory, on the victory for life and the victory for free speech. It's a First Amendment case as well out of California. A simple question right off the bat. Sylvia writes in, what a great win for life. Phil on Facebook wants to just know, I think, Carly, we can run through this. Carly Gamble, one of our senior attorneys, who's very involved in this case, that basically which justices were for and which justices were against when it came to the pro-life case.
Yeah, well, as you would expect, it ran right down party lines, and we talk about this all the time, the abortion distortion in this country. And so the five justices who were in the majority, Thomas wrote the opinion. Then you had actually a concurring opinion by the other four who joined the majority opinion, and that would be Kennedy, the Chief Justice, Justice Gorsuch, and Justice Alito. Those were the majority. And then you've got, obviously, the dissenters are Breyer, Kagan, Sotomayor, who am I missing here? Ginsburg.
Yeah. So, and that was, by the way, for both cases. So you can apply that to both cases that came out today. Different people wrote the opinions, but the same cases. I wanted to go to the language, Carly, because we read in the first segment just kind of what these restrictions were. It was to put on the wall that the abortions are provided in other places, and this is for pro-life pregnancy centers. And by the way, you've also got to give handouts to people about this, that you don't do it here, and here's a place they can get it for maybe even free or at low cost. And California's argument was that they were being very progressive by pushing this kind of speech and letting people know they had access to this kind of care. And that is not how the justices who were in the majority interpreted. I wanted to go to some of that strong language they used, comparing this it was pretty shocking how far they went.
Well, it is. And, in the majority opinion, Justice Thomas gives a little history lesson about government regimes, totalitarian government regimes that have tried to interfere with the doctor-patient discourse. And he compares this to things like communist China and Nazi Germany. It's and I don't want to say that it's a direct comparison, that he goes that far, but why else is it in the opinion if not to say, hey, this is exactly the stuff of totalitarian, authoritarian governments trying to interfere and silence speech with which they disagree, and that's obviously a real concern. And then the concurring opinion authored by Justice Kennedy, I think, actually has some of the best language in there about the forward thinking.
Yeah, let's go to it.
Yeah, so what he says here is that the California legislature included in its official history the congratulatory statement that the act was part of California's legacy of, quote, forward thinking. But it is not forward thinking to force individuals to be an instrument for fostering public adherence to an ideological point of view they find unacceptable. It is forward thinking to begin by reading the First Amendment as ratified in 1791, to understand the history of authoritarian government as the founders then knew it, to confirm that history since then shows how relentless authoritarian regimes are in their attempts to stifle free speech, and to carry those lessons onward as we seek to preserve and teach the necessity of freedom of speech for the generations to come.
We hear it all the time, is that if you actually read the Constitution, it's very clear, especially when it comes to these cases of speech and what kind of speech, what does that mean to have freedom of speech in the United States? It's pretty broad, and there's actually a call coming in on just that point. Block in New York on line 1. You're on the air.
Oh, hi. Well, you stole some of my thunder because I was going to chime in with this comment that the First Amendment is pretty explicit about what it guarantees, including freedom of religion and freedom of speech. Nowhere in the Constitution does it talk about contraception or abortion, and yet what disturbs me is there are 4 justices who seem to think that a right that doesn't emanate from the Constitution overrides the First Amendment rights, which clearly is applicable to the counseling centers.
Well, and we talk about this all the time, Block, and it's as if when it comes to this issue, I bet if it was any other issue, if you took abortion out of it, I think you'd have a 9-0 decision. I really do, because even the liberal justices on the court are usually very good when it comes to basic free speech. But when you make it about abortion at all, and in this case it was pro-life pregnancy centers that were doing counseling, so not about the abortion procedure itself, but about counseling that did not provide abortion, they worship at the altar of abortion. That's what we call it, Andy. And it's somehow everything in their mind shifts. And whatever judicial opinions they have, or even their kind of view of the law, their jurisprudence, it goes out the window when it comes to abortion. We call it sometimes abortion distortion. They just act in a totally different way, and they come to a totally different conclusion than they would if it was not a case that involved the word abortion.
It does. Abortion changes the entire narrative and changes the entire perspective for some reason. I would have expected in a decision like this that if it had not been abortion related, that it might have been 9-0, Jordan, in favor of overturning what California was forcing people to do. And that's exactly what California was forcing people to do, because if you look at this policy under this FACT Act, they were saying, California, the state was saying, who must speak the act's message, what they must say, how they must say it, to whom they must say it. And when you take all those together, it comes up to me with one conclusion. The act is an impermissible content and viewpoint-based compulsion of free speech. The government has no business telling us who is to talk, what are they to say, how they're supposed to say it, and to whom they're supposed to say it. But when abortion comes into the picture, it changes things entirely.
Yeah, we see these two 5-4 decisions today, and as we talk about those, and I think some phone calls on this important too. Both 5-4 on different topics. One, presidential power, and again, putting in place that enhanced vetting of those 8 countries and countries that the White House, working with other federal agencies, determine pose a threat, and so that there needs to be time periods where we don't allow people to come in through the visa program, and then they can work their way off of that list if they provide us with the right information. And then the pro-life pregnancy center case, both 5-4. What does that tell us about the midterm election coming up? And if there are Supreme Court retirements in the next couple of years, it doesn't have to be this term, but in the next couple of years, the U.S. Senate's makeup is key on these cases, because they are the ones with advise and consent. And right now, there's a slim Republican majority where you can get someone like a Neil Gorsuch through. If it had gone the other way, you wouldn't have. If it was a Democrat nominee, both of these cases probably would have been the exact opposite. Certainly the pro-life case, I think, would have been 5-4 the other way, because we talked about it, abortion distortion. And then when it came to the travel case, I think that was very politically charged as well. So if they could not look past the politics of it, it ends up being 5-4. So I want your thoughts as well on how important this is politically, that this is an issue people need to be engaged about. It's a reminder about how important these Supreme Court seats are. And you don't know when there's going to be a vacancy, but it could happen the next year or 2 years. And again, we're on the slimmest of slimmest majorities in the U.S. Senate right now. When we come back from the break, too, I'm going to talk about what happens with some of the other cases. Usually at the Supreme Court, we're going to talk about that. When the Supreme Court issues an opinion, it usually affects many cases around the country. We'll be right back on the broadcast, but I want to remind you we have a matching challenge right now. All of these cases that we've talked about today, and some that we'll talk about later in the show as well, we're involved in at the ACLJ, and we have cases like them around the country that'll be impacted because of the Supreme Court decisions today. In just the pro-life case, we have 3 pro-life pregnancy centers that are impacted directly, and another in a different state with a similar law that is also impacted. So that's just one of these cases that came out today. So the matching challenge, where your donation is doubled, really is important. It affects us so that we can do the work that we do around the country and around the world. You can be a part of our matching challenge by calling right now, toll-free number 877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255, or going to ACLJ.org. That's ACLJ.org, where you can click on that button, Matching Challenge, and donate that way. Your donation is doubled. Or call now, 877-989-2255.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions.
I'm proud to be here today speaking on behalf of Planned Parenthood.
I think what we need to look at is the business of abortion.
This is how many abortions need to be sold.
An organization is chopping up children and selling the body parts.
They've been caught red-handed.
I didn't want anyone to see me. I didn't want anyone to know.
We really did treat women like second-class citizens.
Planned Parenthood really is Abortion, Inc.
They believe that they're doing a service. Well, that child is in a surgical tray.
I would tell you that child has value.
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world.
To focus in on what happened with the pro-life pregnancy case, I did want to discuss as well with Carly Gamble how this affects. We've got other cases, Carly, that are affected now by this decision. One of ours was part of this because we represented one of the three of the licensed facilities. That's the brief here that I'm holding. And then we also, though, have cases that are similar in other states that this will impact.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got the Living Well, the three petitioners there. So the exact same legislation is at issue. And so we expect that this applies, obviously, directly to those three, and that case will be going along the same lines as this. It's a victory for our clients there. But then we also have a case in Hawaii. It's a different law, but it's very similar. It's substantially the same as the FACT Act. And we also represent Crisis Pregnancy Center there. There's just absolutely no reason that this decision should not apply wholesale to what's being required of our client there in Hawaii. They're taking a page out of California's playbook and essentially requiring the same types of notices. One of the things, though, I think it's interesting about this decision today. One of the problems that the Supreme Court had with this is the fact that you have to post this notice and you have to do it in multiple languages. And they give this example of just how burdensome and onerous that is for such a simple message. What if it were just two words, choose life, and all of the other language that would have to surround that? Yep. And what they say is that drowns out the message of the center. Yep. And that's exactly what they've said here, that the First Amendment doesn't allow that. And, this is a tremendous victory for, our clients that are directly affected by the California legislation, as well as that client in Hawaii that should also
and for the First Amendment in general, especially when the abortion industry, they like to have these laws both ways when it applies to them, and the Supreme Court has said no. Once again, when it's the First Amendment, you don't win just because you happen to be the abortion industry. Now, I say that, but let's be honest, as Jeffrey on Facebook writes, Andy, such close decisions show why having conservative justices and judges is such an important issue. I mean, these are right on the line.
Yes.
To us, this is common sense on both these cases, but they are right on the line of going the other way.
Well, we're very close in the Senate, Jordan, as you know. I mean, what is it, 51-49?
Yep.
And we need to keep that majority in the Senate so that we can get conservative justices confirmed. I hope, in my personal opinion, that Justice Kennedy does not retire. There is talk that he will, but Justice Kennedy wrote a very excellent concurring opinion in this Becerra case and this FACT Pregnancy Center case that we have that Carly quoted, and I think Pro-Life Pregnancy Center that Carly quoted, and I think that's very important. But the main thing here is that the Supreme Court, as it is presently constituted, very close, 5-4, said and restated again, it is a basic First Amendment principle that freedom of speech prohibits the government from telling people what they must say. keep out of my business, government.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most basic principle kind of the First Amendment. I do want to take another call, though, on the pro-life cases, because these are so important to the work that we do at the ACLJ. I mean, this is kind of the reason why we exist, the reason why we were founded, was cases like these First Amendment cases and pro-life cases. And in this situation, it just happened to mix both of the issues together, where it was a case involving pro-life pregnancy centers, but a First Amendment issue. Ray is calling in from Asheville, North Carolina, on line 5. Ray, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Thank you. I just want to thank the Lord for the rulings today by the Supreme Court, and I thank God for the work that you folks do. My natural mother was a prostitute, wanted to have me killed by abortion. I thank God that her stepsister pleaded with her not to kill me. She took me, raised me. I'm now in full-time ministry, serving the Lord. And I thank God again, I had the privilege of leading both my mother, natural mother, and stepmother to Christ. And they're both in heaven today. But I thank God for these rulings.
Yeah, I mean, Ray, again, we appreciate your thanks, but also telling your story. I think, for me, Carly, this is why those pro-life pregnancy centers exist, is to work with those the women who find themselves in difficult situations, who may be getting pressure, whether it's from husbands, boyfriends, even their own mothers, or just friends and family, pressuring them to have abortions, and they just want to know what other options are available to them.
Well, that's exactly right, and Ray's story is such a stark reminder of why these centers do what they do and why we do what we do to make sure that they can continue to provide the kind of information and services that they do provide. And I don't know the exact statistic, but I do know that a majority of women who go to these centers and who are able to see, the heartbeat of their child or, see an ultrasound, that's what convinces them that, hey, there's a life at issue here at stake. And, and Ray's story is really compelling, just as a reminder, personal reminder of exactly what's going on here and why we're doing this.
We've got an important documentary on the abortion industry. It's called Abortion, Inc. Take a look. This is the trailer for that documentary.
When a woman gets pregnant, their motherly instincts just kick right into gear. It's how we're wired, it's how we're created, and I short-circuited mine.
I still remember staring up at that bright light and counting backwards from 10.
It was very, very painful. I've never felt pain like that in my life. I remember the nurse giving me sedation, and she just kept rubbing my arm, shushing me.
I didn't want the baggage because I had a vision for my life, and it didn't include children.
When I found myself pregnant, Roe v. Wade had just happened. It was all in the news. I called my doctor. He said, no problem. We can take care of it.
I was told that it was just a blob of tissue. I wasn't given any choices as far as ultrasounds or why don't you go home, think about it, and then come back. Nothing like that. There was nothing positive.
When I stood up, and I fainted. I think I fainted because of the horror of what I had done. I realized that I was missing a large part of me.
I actually ended up being pretty volatile and got a little physical with the nurse. I slapped her across the face. And I remember because I didn't want anyone to see me. I didn't want anyone to know. They don't let you walk back out the front. There's a private exit. And later on in life, I wondered, had I seen someone like me in the state I was in at that moment after that abortion walk out, back out the front clinic, maybe I wouldn't have done it.
So we want to thank you for your support of the ACLJ and remind you we have a matching challenge right now. Whatever you're able to donate to the American Center for Law and Justice is doubled. You can do that by calling our toll-free number 877-989-2255 and being part of our matching challenge. That number again is 877-989-2255, or go to aclj.org, click on matching challenge, and double your donation today. Folks, today was a great example of how the work of the ACLJ really matters all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And we were involved in pro-life pregnancy centers, where we have 3 pro-life pregnancy centers directly involved in the Supreme Court case who got relief today and will not have to post that message promoting abortion on their pro-life pregnancy center doors or hand out those pamphlets. And we've got other cases around the country where similar laws were going to apply that we were fighting in court that will also be affected positively by the Supreme Court holding. So we want to thank you for your support of the ACLJ and remind you we have a matching challenge right now. Whatever you're able to donate to the American Center for Law and Justice is doubled. You can do that by calling our toll-free number 877-989-2255 and being part of our matching challenge. That number again is 877-989-2255, or go to aclj.org, click on Matching Challenge, and double your donation today.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions.
I'm proud to be here today speaking on behalf of Planned Parenthood.
I think what we need to look at is the business of abortion.
This is how many abortions need to be sold.
An organization is chopping up children and selling the body parts.
They've been caught red-handed.
I didn't want anyone to see me. I didn't want anyone to know.
We really did treat women like second-class citizens.
Planned Parenthood really is Abortion, Inc.
They believe that they're doing a service while that child is in a surgical tray.
I would tell you that child has value.
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world.